Hello and welcome to the second episode. Today I'm gonna build a fantasy miniature out of this. So I bought those plastic animals for my daughter some time ago, but she never seemed to be interested in them. So I've decided to put them into good use and build something out of them. So at this point I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to build, but I knew I wanted it to have a vaguely humanoid shape. I wanted to go for a character, not a monster. I played with the animals for a few minutes trying to find interesting shapes. I grabbed brand new blade and started cutting them to pieces. The animals were made from quite soft plastic, so with brand new blade and a little bit of pressure, they cut very easily. I've decided to go for a head of a moose for my mini, as I really like the antlers. They would give the character quite an interesting silhouette. For the abdomen of my character, I decided to use bear's body, as the hairy texture matched the one of the moose. I checked the head against the body and it works pretty well. Now it was time to decide on the limbs of my miniature. I thought that hairy arms of chimpanzee would do nice. I cut his head off as well, and for a minute I considered using its torso for the body of my character, but the proportion was just off. Chimpanzee's legs were a bit too short for my miniature, so I grabbed elephant and I snapped my brand new blade. Never mind, I grabbed another blade and finished the job. I glued the head in place and it looked pretty well. Then I glued the legs. I wasn't too concerned about the texture difference of his legs, as with some paint it should look fine. Then it was time for some cleanup work. After that I glued one of his arms. I wanted the other arm to be extended, as I wanted my character to have some kind of spear or a staff, but there was a pretty big gap between the arm and his body. Fortunately, Elephant's butt filled this gap pretty fine. It looks like a mess, but it's mine, so I love it anyway. A bit more cleanup work. If I wanted him to carry a staff, I had to reposition his hand. After that, I started filling in the gaps with layers of super glue and baking soda. It's not the most elegant method. Something like 2 parts epoxy would probably work better and give better results, but I'm just lazy like that. Once I'm quite satisfied with the build, I give it a thin layer of black paint. It's easier to spot any imperfections when the miniature has uniform color. I didn't like the position of his other hand, so I changed it as well. After that I do some small touch-ups. Next I grab an old net curtain to give my moose guy some kind of cape. Up to this point I wasn't certain if this hybrid of different animal parts is going to work, but the cape brought it all together. I used small scraps of the net curtain to give him some kind of bracelets to hide the cut lines. After that I sprayed him again with black paint. I used a piece of this plastic tie to give him a coat buckle for some extra detail. Finally it was time to give him his staff, and first I considered a toothpick, but I wanted to go for something more natural looking. I remember I had this leftover from my daughter's Halloween costume. I picked a nice stick and glued it in place. Looks pretty good. I used some Mod Podge to stiffen his cape. I felt like his staff could use some extra detail, so I wrapped a piece of twine around it and glued it in place with super glue. Unfortunately, my phone ran out of space when I was painting this little guy and I didn't realize, so Bam! As I don't own any proper miniature paints, I used cheap crafts paints and homemade washes. Still, I'm quite happy with the result. Then it was time to choose a base for him. Even though he would fit nicely on the smaller base, I decided to go for the big one as I wanted to decorate it. Using PVA glue, I attached some pebble to it. After that, some brown paint and black wash. At this point I decided that I wanted my moose guy to be some kind of ancient forest guardian, so I grabbed some reindeer moss and started covering him in it. And then another flocking just for some color variation. Since he meant to be some kind of legendary character, I grabbed some golden paint and gave his antlers light dry brushing. Next I covered the base in PVA glue again and sprinkled the leftovers from his coat and some static grass. Then I finally glued him to his base using super glue. The base was a bit plain and not interesting to look at, so I grabbed some flowers and decorated it. I don't know why, but I thought it would be a cool idea to give him a flowery mohawk. I'm still kinda on the fence about it. Then I added some grassy turfs just to fill this base. And for the last detail, I scraped off the ends from one of the yellow flowers and glued it to his coat just to give him some more color. And done! I must say I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. If you liked the video, please subscribe. For some more nice shots of this little guy, visit my Instagram. Thanks for watching.